Well, we got Mr. Duncan Taylor, a very special guest, joining us for Pints with Ayre today. Ariel.
Awesome.
We got Ariel Brown, our airhead in chief with Ayre Acoustics. I'm Jake Forsyth, your lieutenant airhead, and Duncan Taylor. Why don't you introduce yourself for some of our friends who might not know exactly who you are with YG
Hello,
Acoustics?
hello, Air Pints with Air listeners and watchers. I'm Duncan. I'm with YG Acoustics. We're closer to Denver than we are to the Air guys, but not too far away from the Air factory. And we make speakers. I handle marketing for this company, and here we are today. I'm a big beer lover, and of course we're all united under the love of hi-fi. So here we are.
Oh yeah, and you're one of our Colorado boys, so you get to indulge in a wide variety of brews like we do.
I'm a
But what,
snob.
yeah, oh yeah, that's the
Yeah,
night. That's the way to put it. Snob.
for sure, for sure.
What are you drinking
No
on
question.
today?
Yeah, so uh actually some of the stores around here were a little bit limited, I found. But I found something from a brewery I highly respect, and it may seem strange for folks thinking that I've got to be only drinking Colorado brews, but this is from Wyoming. It's a brewery called Melvin, and they're in Alpine, Wyoming, and this is their IPA. Um, I I liked their pale ale version of this a little bit more, but this one's great too. So here we are, and it's the Melvin IPA, and it's actually, if you live in Colorado, it's at most grocery stores. They do a good
Yeah,
job of distributing to everywhere.
Yeah, we did. I think it was a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, maybe we did one of those, right?
that was a little longer than that.
Longer.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
time's flying.
middle of the
Oh,
year maybe.
yeah. I guess we're
Well,
already into March of this year, so
Yeah,
so I got to know, what are you guys drinking? I saw
we're
some.
we're we're dip
It's an
we're
interesting
split up.
color over there.
Yeah, we're split up today. Ariel's on the current one, and I'm doing a rerun. I guess I kind of forgot about that.
yeah. So this is another one that is a repeat brewery for us upslope. Again, one of my favorites. We used to be a couple buildings down from them at our previous factory location, and I loved being next door to them. That was great. They had some food,
Nice.
so it was great to go out for lunch or after work. It was great. So I love the upslope guys. Got to be friends with some of the bartenders there and stuff. It was a lot of fun. So anyways, this is I was nervous about this one. Um, they've done a lot of sour ales over the years, and most of them are really loved. They don't overdo it. So it's passion fruit hibiscus. And again, I'm always a little nervous getting on a really fruity sour. This one is actually really nice and light. It's not overly fruity or overly sour. It's really nice and refreshing. So I really enjoy this one.
The name kind of scared me off. I just had this IPA a couple days ago that was just so florally that it was too much. I as soon as I saw the word hibiscus in there, I just thought it was gonna taste too flowery for me today. So I should have tried it though. But yeah, so I have Asher, and I guess we have done this before, but I love Asher beers in general. I like that they are an organic brewery. There's a lot of
Yeah.
crap and pesticides and stuff that gets sprayed all over the stuff that we like to drink these days. And so I like to support that whenever I can.
And they're very local. They're just right down the street here, practically. So there.
And that's the tree hugger.
This is the Tree Hugger Amber.
Sounds about right for our area, right?
Yeah. Tree Hugger, organic ale.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's all
Yeah,
Boulder. It's all coming together.
of course.
It tastes amazing. I love it. Well, yeah. So I thought it would be a
Cheers,
lot.
guys.
Oh, well,
Cheers.
cheers. Thank you, Duncan. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good to be here.
Well, we have a lot going on in the next 2 months, actually. So, like, you and I get to work back to back in the next 2 months,
That's
Ariel as
right.
well. So we've got Southwest Audio Fest creeping up here in a couple weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Two
Less than
weeks.
2 weeks away. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got AXPONA right after that. So I mean, we could probably just talk about both of these today, huh?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You can't see it. Made sure I'm not physically sweating, but internally I'm sweating because it's 2 weeks from this freaking show. And, I got a box truck today. I'm looking at how many thousands of pounds am I going to bring and, drive
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna be good.
I don't, um, I don't miss not having to deal with speakers or
Yeah.
having to deal with speakers, I should say. Yeah, I don't,
Well,
Yeah,
it's
especially when they're
funny.
all aluminum.
Right, not light whatsoever. But it's funny here we say quite a bit. Thank goodness we don't have to make electronics because they,
make them.
each has its challenges.
Yeah.
Each has its challenges.
Yeah, making them.
I
And then, yeah, shipping.
Answering that phone when someone today, for example, I was trying to update some firmware on something, and it took me an hour to realize that I was actually working with a 240 volt unit, and I'd forgotten to bring the transformer over,
Oh.
but it looked like it was working. I mean, Ethernet blinky
wow.
blinky and getting everything, but it wasn't actually working. So yeah, that was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, whew, speakers are easy.
Yeah. Well, you guys are starting to get into it a little bit with the Vantage line.
Yes, absolutely.
You're getting to dabble with it.
Yes, we are. Yeah. I've got lots of experience with those, with electronics. Years ago, I used to work for PS Audio.
Mhm.
I think that was my first gig in this industry, but I've got lots of experience with it. It's just sometimes I prefer the simplicity. Although I will say, on a recent trip to visit our friends Cardas, who might join us on another one in the future, I was wishing that we were selling tone arms or cartridges, anything lighter than the whatever I was jeeping over to a reviewer's house. So yeah.
Well,
Uh,
yeah. So you guys have for Southwest, is it 2 rooms then with us? Us is one, and you have a first floor room then too.
yeah, we're actually going to be in 4 different rooms. Um,
Oh,
the Yeah, we've got our main room downstairs. I was lucky enough to nab the last big room as the show was just announced. A lot of pre-sales and stuff before the show was announced, and I didn't even know about the show. So I was lucky in that regard. So we're gonna have a big room downstairs. It's called Cardinal, and then we're gonna be in the room with you, and then we've got a couple dealer rooms upstairs.
what are you guys kind of focusing on in the Cardinal room?
Yeah, well, when you got a big room, you want to go fairly big,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm bringing our Sonia version 3. And for those who are not familiar with our lines, they have names after people. We have a Haley, we have a Sonia, we have a Carmel. Carmel is the name of I believe the son of the original owner of this company. And
Not
so
not his girlfriends.
no,
No.
yeah, no, I don't think so. But Sonia was his wife, and actually we're kind of split at the company of is it Sonia or is it Sonia? And I think that just comes down to your regionality or whatever. But I tend to say Sonia myself. But that's the plan. The big speakers, they've got the MTM up top with the smaller mids, so it's probably the speaker that sounds the least like a speaker from us. And if you know our stuff, you know that, especially our new things, you know that not sounding like a speaker is one of our main objectives.
Yeah.
And projecting, getting off the speakers and huge soundstage and all that kind of thing. But Sonia is special in our lineup. I would call it our flagship. It's modular, so it can grow to a large size that you can add towers. But I'll bring the most basic version to the Dallas show. It's still going to be 900 pounds for both speakers. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Oh man. And then so our room up at the top, I figure, if you're not on the first floor, you might as well be on the top. And
Good thinking.
yeah, that's gonna be a great room. But our room
1420, right?
1420.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, 1420.
1420.
Um
Right. Sure.
that room is going to be a lot of fun. So we have from we've got Peaks Summit speakers,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Showing off
Top
there.
of the line. the biggest speakers from the Peaks range, which are our wood veneered speaker line.
So cool. So yeah, we'll have the biggest kind of the reference, almost kind of the biggest, I guess. You could still configure it bigger, it sounds like, but got top of the reference, top of the Peaks at Southwest.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna run it with the new electronics, our new front end stuff, because we got our KX8 variable gain preamp that's finally out. That's been kind of years of development, which I'm really excited for that product because and I know our good friend Darren is well familiar with how we do our volume controls. I remember him teaching me about how the volume controls worked when we were at PS Audio together one day, and he was just really glowing about how the stepper motors engage the resistors and all of that with our upper end preamps. But this new one uses a sealed continuous potentiometer, so it's real buttery smooth action, but it still maintains that kind of constant noise floor at whatever volume you're working with. So
Excellent.
really excited for that. And then our friend Michael Livornia did a nice little write up on this system too. So it's like that exact same setup. It'll be CX8, KX8, BX8. So you got to bring some CDs.
Okay. Oh, actually, I've got lots. I've got lots of old demo CDs from the past year, and I've been listening to them lately because now is about the time you want to make sure that you've got your playlists right, you've got your files served locally in case anything happens, you've got you're just thinking about contingency plans and should I get that scissor lift dolly because the height of the tailgate's too much to get 500 pounds out of it with two of
You
us.
sound much more prepared than we traditionally are in most of our setups. We usually wing it. We've had, Brent before has been in charge of a lot of stuff, but he's, fairly organized and not usually miss much. But, as far as that detail of planning, we've got a few things to learn, a few things to work on. So this would be good working with you. It'd be good to.
There's some experience there. There's the fact that I'm a Virgo and I just can't help it. Although it's funny because if you look in the back of my truck or, at all the fishing crap I've got in there, you wouldn't think I'm organized at all. But when I want to, I certainly can be. So trying to think of everything and not run into issues down the road.
That's great. That's great. I love it.
It's organized for you though. You know where everything is.
Well, that is absolutely the case. I think and of course, as soon as I take something out of my truck to put it away, I need it the next day. It just happens. It's what it is. But then I constantly have to deal with the, the comments about, I get them from my 8-year-old, she gets in, and I think she heard it from her mom, but she gets in and says, this truck's too dirty. You got too much stuff in here.
Yeah.
That's your opinion.
Yeah. It sounds pretty much exactly like my offices and workspaces here. Although it's pretty good right now. I've kept it like I had a big cleanup. We had visitors here. I cleaned up, and so it's been pretty good. But yeah, that's for decades. Even Charlie before that. I've got footage. So in the first few years, after a few years I worked at Ayre, there was a local, it was like a Boulder or Colorado contest for like the messiest office or something. So the rest of the employees at Ayre, we took pictures and submitted Charlie's office to this contest, and he was a finalist, and he got second or third overall in this contest, and he got this little like gift card and stuff, and he thought it was funny. Luckily, he wasn't overly offended.
Good.
He understood the
hint.
Yeah, the method to the madness, and which was pretty much reason why like we kind of synced up pretty well because we had very similar systems in that way.
That reminds me of a Brooklyn Nine-Nine promo where they show a scene and Officer Holt is holding up two pictures, and he says one is a picture of your locker and the other one is a picture from a garbage dump in the Philippines. Can you tell which one is which? And then he's like looking, he's like, trick question. They're both your locker. But every now and then a good cleanup is great. But
Yeah, for sure. Well,
there's more important stuff to get done. That's the
Yeah,
main
there's
thing.
always yes. Yes.
yeah, I definitely I appreciate your attention to detail, most certainly. And glad you mentioned like contingency plan, because that's something that's been on my mind too. Because I'm like, all right, we're gonna do the CD player, but we can have the USB input and the Ethernet input, so we can stream with it. We can spin discs. If something happens, we can maybe have music on a thumb drive and play it through the network port. But I think just that one source could really do it all in any sort of situation. But yeah, I'm planning to have discs, be able to spin CDs, do Qobuz, do thumb drive with music, all from the CX8.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, the worst thing in the world would be if you have to be one of those unfortunate situations at a show where you just have stuff in there, it doesn't work, and you're just kind of sitting. Or sometimes you have one banner and there's the guys just sitting there because their shipment didn't arrive. I mean, it's just given, what we invest in this and the amount of time and attention, how important this stuff is for us. It's just those things are just tragedies. And you try to make the best. I've seen those situations, and they're trying to make the best of it, but you want to avoid that if possible.
Yeah, computer and network audio can be a challenge even without hotel internet and network. So it's good to have the ability to fall back on something. So yeah,
Yeah.
Peaks speakers, Summit, top model, and that's a 10-inch woofer on the bottom, right? 7-inch mid.
Everything we do is in centimeters, and that woofer is closer to 11. That's either
Okay.
similar or exactly the same as the woofer in Haley.
Mm.
And then the woofer in Ascent matches up with the woofer in Vantage, which is one down from Haley. Yeah, 7-inch mid range. I mean, it's 18 centimeters. And then the same tweeter used throughout the Peaks line, which is actually the same tweeter essentially that's used throughout the reference line, just minus the aluminum airframe that we create underneath it.
Cool.
So, extension on this tweeter goes up to 25 kilohertz rather than 45, but it's an awesome tweeter, So, yeah, great speaker. Top of our line, it's $25,000 for the pair. And they're fairly big, but they're deep, not super wide, not as wide as they could be, right? So
Yeah.
And then given that all the face plates are black anodized with a very specific kind of acid etch on it, so that gives us not as much shine, And then we've got our black cones. They tend to kind of melt into the background, and they make for great demo speakers for electronics folks at shows because there's not this shouting "look at me" kind of thing from the speakers going on. It's really just doing its role and showing off the electronics.
I think aesthetically they're just gorgeous. I think all the accent veneers, just every one of them matte looks just awesome with the new front baffle or the plate, wherever you guys call it.
That's nice of you to say. Our imagery team and our graphics team and our research and development and measurement team, they're actually the same people. We have a bunch of folks with multiple skills, and so the guy that does all our renders, he has some say in aesthetics. He also operates the robotic arm for the giant 1,800 square foot anechoic chamber we have, So, the sense of taste with the folks in charge of looks and design at our company is really high, and I'm fortunate to be part of this team. They're so good, So.
Oh, that's awesome. The whole Peak series does remind me a lot of kind of what we've achieved with our 8 series, where it seems like you guys are kind of working smarter, not harder with that line. And it seems like you've trickled down a considerable amount of performance to that line, kind of similar to what maybe the Gen 2 reference stuff might have been like. Is that
so? Actually, it's the other way. and this kind of feeds into our story of this company and what's happened here since 2020. Since
Okay.
2020, we've expanded from 2 units in this industrial area to 7. We've sold all of our CNC machines, and now that we're a hodgepodge of different kinds from different years, now we've got all state of the art under the same brand, and that brand's offices are headquartered 30 seconds away. That's a lot better than needing to call a guy in Massachusetts and hoping he answers because, something broke. But so what our new design, let me back up. The company was sold in 2017, and the original founder and owner stayed on for a couple years. But the new designing began in earnest in 2020 during COVID time.
Okay.
The person we tapped to lead design, and at that time he wasn't yet tapped to be our CEO, just to help with design. He actually had a major part, and when I say that, I should say he was responsible for the YG Acoustics previous DC2 update. So what that was, it's called dual coherent, and it was extending the phase matching of drivers between drivers where they overlap at crossover points. It was matching the slopes and the curves of those phase responses beyond just the crossover point, which is where it was before that update. Now, he came to the company because he was a customer and had the biggest system that they made, which was called XV. And being an engineer and loving this stuff, he at some point was kind of opening it up and looking at the crossover and saying, hey, I think we could do it this way. And so basically he was a customer with lots of passion, but also had brought, an engineering improvement, a massive improvement to the company on his own. So here we are years later, and he's the obvious one to ask. And it turned out he was like running 5 companies at the same time at that time, and he was so thrilled to do this. He started kind of, transitioning away from several of them so that he could focus on us. Actually, I think it was 7. He's just remarkable. Like at one point, he was running 23 companies at one time, and this was maybe 10 or 20 years ago, but he's been in a bunch of different industries, software, energy sector, mostly with software, dealing with the energy sector, but a bunch of different other industries and stuff. So his breadth of knowledge is great. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like that. Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's got a doctorate in astrophysics, and besides being, so he's British, but besides being one of the most lovely gentlemen that you'll ever meet, he is the smartest person I've ever met. So
this is Dr.
Kind of
Stephen.
Dr. Matthew Webster.
Oh, Matthew Webster. I'm sorry. Matthew
Yep.
Webster. Yeah.
Yep. So he came on in 2020, and because of COVID, we being in the UK, he couldn't come over. I think originally the thought was, let's build a research facility, in Colorado. But I think just due to the realities, it made more sense to build it in the UK, where he lives in Cambridge. So he founded and built a company called Cambridge Acoustic Sciences, not to be confused with Cambridge Audio. They're very different.
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge Acoustic Sciences, if you look them up, they're an R&D facility for the audio sector. And originally their vision was to focus on YG, but also be open to other projects. But after a year or two of development, actually, I think it was in 2022, the 2 companies merged. So Cambridge Acoustic Sciences is part of YG at this point. But what they did was they had a warehouse that they built, and they put a 1,800 square foot anechoic chamber, very large robotic arm, one of the largest that they could get a hold of. They've got a laser vibrometry machine that can shoot 1,024 laser points on on an area, and through Doppler effect measure what kind of vibrations are going off on that surface. So that's one level of measurement, is the laser. Then the next level is actually accelerometers. We have back-to-back accelerometers in these tiny arrays that we can put all over the place inside. They're almost weightless. And then when we want to get really precise with measurements, we use high-speed photography. And our videos at this facility can shoot 300,000 frames per second. So we can look at a tweeter playing a 60 kilohertz, sinusoidal tone, and actually see what's happening to the fabric in real time. Slow it down. 300,000 is the top limit, but that's of what's useful to us. Full resolution is more like 75 to 80,000 frames per second, but I mean, serious stuff. And so we have these waves of measurement. Concurrently, Dr. Matthew Webster's actual, one of his areas of expertise is in multi-domain computational modeling. Multi-domain computational modeling is how modern biopharma is created and developed, how cell phones are developed, anything that's big money. What will be done is supercomputers will be rented, and you'll run these simulation programs that don't just look at one thing at a time. They look at the influence of many things together. And it just takes incredible computing power and the know-how to set that up. So we have a supercomputer at the facility in UK. However, it's not powerful enough to do this stuff. So what we do is we rent banks of supercomputers around the world. You can rent them by the minute from Google and Amazon and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and stuff. And so we think that since 2020, we've spent about $1 million, a little over $1 million in renting supercomputers just to run these programs. So yeah, it's to say. And so anyway, what you do when you build up measurement facilities that good and modeling facilities that good is you always run them in parallel, and you always cross-check afterwards. Any measurement you do, you model it. Any model you do, you measure it. And so over time, you can develop adjustments to your models so that you more closely hit the measurements. And so we are at a stage where it's been a couple of years of this, and we are at a stage where we really, really trust our models, because it's been a long time since they've been even that far off, of exact. So pretty great. And that allows you to prototype lots of stuff without ever building a single thing.
Yeah, I mean, you literally can almost control every variable too at that point. It's like, oh, well, we got this much distortion and movement out of the driver at these frequencies, and then you can like machine out, however much mass, or leave in however much mass the driver needs, or whatever. I mean, yeah, you guys can control everything that way.
Yep, and we model not just what happens to the drivers, but what happens to the crossover when it's under a bunch of different loads. What happens to the resistors? What happens, where the energy fields go? So we do a lot of stuff in our crossovers for peaks that is focused on like a whole system look. For example, our traces are never right angles, because at that right angle junction you've got a little bit thicker trace, and that actually has a sonic result, in a highly resolving system. So we have smooth traces without harsh angles. We have, we're trying to eliminate pinch points of energy loss inside the crossover, as well as a bunch of other stuff, but just a window into the craziness. And what we like to do, because there's, depends on your audience, but there's some folks that eat up the tech stuff and really want to know how top of the line and techy you're getting. And then there's a lot of us that really just want to enjoy it. So trying to kind of manage that is the peaks line. It sits right in the sweet spot there, I think.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you guys kind of went through a little reinvention of yourselves, focused on focused on the peaks, and then went to the the reference stuff a little bit then, huh?
Thank you. That's what I meant by the other way. That's trickle up.
Yeah.
We did a lot of good example is treating the back wave inside the cabinet. And we got into metamaterial absorption and using Helmholtz principle and the very strategic absorptive areas to eliminate as much of the energy coming back to the back of the cone as possible. And whatever remains, we want it to be wideband and not peaky. With Talus, which is right in the middle of the line, we're able to remove 98% of the energy coming back to the cone. That's our best performer of the peaks line is 98% for the Talus, which is, if you know speaker design, that's incredible. But
it's cool. And I read something recently that I think it's the Talus, but one of the peaks has the crossover in the base of the speaker. Is that the Talus?
They all do. And
Okay.
what it is two things. It's essentially an external crossover. It's in a vibrationally isolated plinth, is what we call it at the bottom. It's sided in aluminum, but internally, actually, it's a Delrin box because we want to avoid any kind of magnetic stray interactions. And it features a lot of huge componentry. And our crossovers compared to other speakers that are even in the same range are crazy expensive and bulky and big. But they also feature some of the components that we've developed over the last couple of years. So we make our own capacitors now. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we've been working with a supplier to an OEM of probably the most popular capacitor brand out there that most people wouldn't know actually doesn't make their own capacitors. But we found the factory that does, and it was about a 9-month process of buying a lot and auditioning a lot, and it's been a journey. But when you got your own capacitors, you can spec it out perfectly, you can get tighter tolerances, but most importantly, since everybody else in your competitive tier in the industry wants the same high-end components, you don't have to share orders with anybody. You don't have to worry about back orders and delays based on that kind of stuff. So coming out of the COVID area, and the word delay has been kind of a problem for almost every company. So we've been doing a lot of development to free ourselves from those kind of constraints.
It's cool. Yeah.
Tell me something about the amps that we're going to see in the preamp. Now you're saying the volume control is really new. Tell me more. Tell me more about that product.
I want to hear Ariel tell us more.
Okay. Well, so so the preamp and the volume control, we do in variable gain now for many years, and we've talked a lot about just how special that is. A lot of its benefits as far as its constant signal noise, regardless of listening, where almost all traditional preamps with a pre-attenuator at a normal listening level, which might be halfway up or a third up, that's throwing away signal, but not throwing away any noise. And so your signal noise is not that spec that you read in the data sheet or the spec sheet. You're 20, 30, 40 dB worse than that. So with variable gain, when we, it's essentially with our zero feedback circuit and our JFET input stage, which is essentially voltage to current device, or current stage, and then we go back to voltage by a simple resistor. And that variable gain is essentially just picking a different resistor for that output gain point.
Oh, okay.
So, and by doing that, you're adjusting signal and noise simultaneously, because the noise of that stage is set by the gain, or predominantly controlled by the gain. And so when we turn the volume way down, you're turning both things down. So you get virtually constant signal noise, which is a big deal. And so like one of the we've got a few comments from some really notable listeners that, yeah, like, it sounds great, but what I notice most is when I turn it way down and I'm listening, I don't lose anything.
Yeah.
It still sounds exactly the same at low levels. There's kind of background listening, whatever it is. It still sounds exactly the same as if I crank it up. Which I think a testament to that signal noise virtually right there.
Yep. Yep.
But so, in the previous products like the KXR and the KX5, the AX5, the implementation of that is quite costly. We use solid silver contact Schalco rotary switches run by stepper motors. It's very costly, and there's a lot of fine tuning of the whole setup and the alignment of the switches and all that. And so, that really was not an option for the 8 series. It would have doubled the cost of the 8 series product virtually.
Yeah.
So in the KX8, the back up to the EX8, which is the integrated amp, we weren't able to implement in that. There's a few constraints there that we couldn't overcome. So that had to fall back to more traditional pre-attenuator volume control. But the KX8, with its because it's not an integrated amp, doesn't have the signal levels required to drive a speaker. It's still more line level stuff. We were able to use that same part, use the same carbon potentiometer, a motor-driven carbon potentiometer from Alps, and use that in a variable gain configuration. And there's some tricks there. Some of the early prototypes we thought would work, and there's a special way you have to use it. So I'm not going to give that away because I'll leave it at that. So for a much more affordable cost, by a couple orders of magnitude, we're able to get that same performance out of a much more affordable device. So that's really kind of the big win on this product, is getting that level of performance out of that. And then again with the whole 8 series, and again, kind of like you are talking about your speaker line, where actually kind of developing all the new stuff in one line and actually moving that up to into more reference lines. We do that regularly too, and it just kind of bounces back. Basically, whatever we work on next, regardless if it's a cheaper line or more expensive line, everything's better than the last thing.
Yep.
And that was one of Charlie's things, and that's kind of just natural as well. You're always innovating, regardless of what level or what budget you are trying to design to. You're always learning, you're always innovating. And so, the 8 series is basically, our current, latest design. So it has all our newest philosophies on circuit design, everything. And so we've learned a lot there. And so a lot of that, and, even evolutions of that, are going to be going into our next higher level products. We're working on upgrades to the X5 and the R series stuff, and there'll be some soon models of that will certainly find its way, that we learned in the X8 stuff.
Very
cool.
cool.
Really similar to how
exactly.
your guys' technology has started to progress.
Yeah, and then something we might learn from adopting lessons from the peaks line into the reference line, then we might apply that to a whole new line. It could be something below the peaks that's budget. It's not about, it's about capturing the knowledge and getting a better understanding of the things that matter to ears in terms of bringing the motion through the music. And when you learn something great, you gotta implement it. And so constant innovation over here too. That's
good. Once you kind of figure out, and once you and it might be something that you even stumble on, you don't understand it. Once you dig into it, understand it, then you have that ability to then apply it at whatever level you want. There's ways to scale it up or down, as long as you fundamentally understand what and why it's doing and why it's great, whatever it is. If it's just a fluke, then it's really hard to scale it. Once you have a fundamental understanding of what's going on, then it's
Brilliant.
So it's going to be an integrated and then a CD player. What else is going in the room?
No, sorry, that we're kind of comparing the integrated to the preamp and such. So yeah, because our integrated, the EX8, that kind of does everything. I guess that's where the E comes from.
kind of.
It uses a traditional attenuator for the volume control.
But and the KX8's a preamp.
KX8
is a preamp. Yeah, which has just recently started shipping. We've been talking about it for years. Has never gotten out the door. It's finally out the door as of about a month ago.
All right.
Yeah. Exciting. All wins.
One of those I mean, it was a product line that was just starting to become available right before the pandemic, So I mean, like once things set in, I think there was some notable delays in finishing development. And
there were a lot of hurdles and a lot of obstacles that arose in those couple of years that held us back in a lot of ways.
But
we made it though.
We're on the other still side. Here.
Oh,
we're still here.
And so the other thing, the VX8, ta-da, right there.
Yes.
The VX8, that's kind of a fun product for us too, because it came out last year. We started shipping probably end of spring, into the summer, maybe officially. But it's our 30th product that Ayre Acoustics has ever designed and released, and it came out on our 30th anniversary. And our first product was the V3 stereo amplifier, and so it's just kind of a neat product to kind of compare and contrast what our first product 30 years ago was like versus this product here. But yeah, with some of the new stuff in the 8 series, and Ariel can probably expand upon this too, but I think the two things that stand out to me in the 8 series as far as the changes we've implemented are kind of like with regards to capacitance and some voltage regulation.
Yes, power supply stuff. Yeah, that's always kind of, that is probably more quickly evolving than our core, analog stages. So yeah, the power supply is definitely kind of easiest spot to make big improvements, constant improvements. So certainly going back decades, looking at high end, especially power amps, that it was usually, we're talking about like the filter capacitors. You're talking about the big soup cans, soup can capacitors. So you were moving towards smaller capacitor, but more of them in parallel. And so you get some big benefits there. As far as total parts costs, it might be more, and there's more costly as far as stuffing costs. You're stuffing, 10 parts instead of 1, for example. So that's, as far as a per part cost at the contract manufacturer stuffing the boards, it costs more. But you get a lot of benefits because most of the kind of the parasitic parameters of those capacitors, they're better individually as just a smaller part, and then B, in parallel, they reduce even further, and so you get much faster combination that way. So you get much lower ESR, much lower ESL, and so we've been kind of jumping into that end, and we're doing tests on some of the old products, and with fantastic results. We really like that. So that's just one example. And then just we've almost always done our own, zero feedback, discrete, really simple voltage regulation, and that's, we just keep on improving that, just keep on tweaking it. Usually, often a little more complicated, as it gets better, so it gets, a bit, bigger in size and, more parts, but that's not always true, but it gets, higher performance, just sounds better.
What's interesting about power supplies right now is the number of folks kind of coming back toward switch mode power supplies in high end products, and
Yep.
not the wall wart that you're thinking of, but thinking of the solution approach. But I know a handful of other guys that are looking at that, and it's just an interesting time for power supplies. I think design right now, and as we know, and not only everything matters at a high resolution system, but power. We're turning power into music, and the thought that
Yeah.
the power supply doesn't matter
Oh,
is like so
the
silly.
farthest thing from the
So,
truth. That is,
yeah,
that
it's
is the biggest
everything.
fallacy ever. Yeah.
It's everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so real fast, reactive, dynamic, lively sound, I think is kind of some good keywords to highlight for the new stuff that we're doing. And the peak or the summit speakers, what sensitivity are those roughly? They're like 90 something, right? Like
Yeah. Most of the range
low to-
is between 92 and 87.
yeah, I think of these ones I remember around 92 or so, 94, which
Yeah.
for like a medium high to higher sensitivity speaker and or especially like a full range speaker like the Summits, those are some of the traits that I think the KX8 will really shine on, is because again, you don't really need to use as much of the preamp to kind of get the most out of it, the performance of that particular product. And so when you couple that with something that's a little more sensitive or full range through and through, you just get you get that sound that you are hoping for pretty much at like
Yeah.
any volume. So
Yeah. Now I won't pretend that the Summit as the flagship speaker in the Peaks line is the easiest to drive. I mean, the reason that it might not be is because it's a three-way that's got a fairly large volume cabinet and a fairly large woofer. So you're just thinking about mass at first. Of course, we do a lot to reduce that as much as we can and not require as much power to drive. But then you think about, well, our company philosophy is inter-driver phase alignment. Just give you an idea of the Summit, the crossover point between the mid-range and the bass is somewhere around 150 hertz-ish. None of our stuff is right on any number. It's really based on modeling, but that the range at which they track perfectly in phase with each other, the mid-range and the bass, goes actually from 60 to 300 hertz. And so that's done by a bunch of parallel components and some notching. And so when you look at our crossovers, they're huge, and so the Peaks being full range, Summit being full range. Yes, the caveat aside that it still is high 80s, low 90s, still at 4 ohms, and you kind of know what you're dealing with there when you consider that the figures at 4 ohms. But yeah, I would say the easiest to drive in that line would be likely the Talus, as the floor standing two-way. The driver, we don't have to do anything special to control over excursion with that one because it's got a cabinet that really can support that driver. So yeah, if you have a handle on a little bit on speaker design, it would make sense that you wouldn't bring a flea watt amp to the Summit's party. I will tell you that. But according to Michael Lavorgna, it's a great pairing. It's silly that we're an hour away and we haven't had a chance to actually listen to it yet.
We're busy, man. We're busy.
Yeah,
We're gonna get
we
a chance
can.
to hang out.
I'm like so busy, but we could trust Mr. Lavorgna, and I'm very thrilled to hear how it goes. I was recently at Alan Taffel's house out in Delaware, and he has a little CH Precision integrated, and I brought a big pair of aluminum speakers there, and we're kind of, is this going to do it? And it did it so well. It really powered them
Nice.
perfectly. So it was very cool to see.
Yeah, yeah. VX8 with having the power supply just kind of dedicated to it versus our EX8 integrated, sharing some preamp and
Right,
other
right.
componentry there. It did measure a little bit more powerful with stereo file, so about 10% more efficient as the standalone power amp, so that should help a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
because
luckily,
VX8 is big. VX8 for people that don't know, they use the same raw circuit board. Their stuff slightly differently. The same basic design, same transformer, all these things. And so the whole X8 series line is designed to share a lot of components. We can configure them to make whatever product we want out of as many shared components as we want. So anyway,
that's a smart way to do electronics. I'll tell you that. I mean, we always try to do that at PS Audio and use the same parts wherever you can. It's just a good thing for business. Yeah. Cool.
As long as you're doing reasonable enough volume, yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're not doing enough volume, it's
then you can't get low prices because you're volume ordering, and then you might as well get boutique stuff at that point. Yeah, sure,
Right.
Well, at least we're not filling a stadium or a giant room. It's it's going to be a hotel room. So
Not yet.
Great.
Not yet.
Yeah, right. Not yet. That's next show.
I could talk to you all night. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but do you have time to talk about AXPONA, or should we save that for another time?
Yeah, let's jump on Expona. Also, we should mention our cable partner in that room is going to be Cardas, and they couldn't make it today, but we'll make it on another one because
I think I'll be able. I'll just have to rope Brian into it. Maybe for next week we'll have a follow up for Southwest with Brian next week. So yeah, Ayre, YG Acoustics, Cardas cables for Southwest Audio Fest. It's gonna sound awesome. But then
1420, go see us.
Yeah, room 1420. And then gosh, not even a month later, it seems like we'll be working again in Chicago for AXPONA, and that's really exciting because it's a new kind of co-dealer for us.
Yep.
Musical Artisans.
Yep.
And Ricardo Reyes, with Musical Artisans, and that's
with a brand new location, brand new shop. Beautiful. He's just finished. He's going to do the grand opening right around the AXPONA time. Cool.
I think from what I've seen and from the spy shots I've been graced from that shop, it's going to be gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I'm so excited for it. But this is us kind of flipping kind of going the other route from Southwest and working with our reference stuff together.
Right.
And so we'll have our R series, KXR, MXR, and we don't have our DAC yet, so we'll use our QX5 20.
Love it.
Which
probably should have been a QXR to begin with, but it's needed to be packaged differently.
Yeah.
Well, the
R level circuit in there though.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, that product too has even though it's been around for us for a little bit now, it has had some pretty big updates in the last few years. We've significantly updated the USB and the Ethernet circuitry involved in that, and so that will play a big role in the music that we're playing at that show. I definitely will be running Cobuzz available at that show, and then we will have our CX8 there as well as our kind of contingency plan in case network issues arise, and we can spin a CD just in case. But yeah, QX5 20, MXR 20s, KXR 20s, and the Carmel 3s.
Our little gem of the reference line, the floor standing 2-way.
That's my favorite one. I think it is the sexiest speaker ever. Just going on record with that. It is just, the lines are perfect.
Love it. So, I mean, years ago we did a in-depth collaboration with Porsche Design, and that collaboration really helped define a lot of the curves and shapes of the modern YG look. And we are forever grateful to those engineers that teamed up with us to do that. And the concept of the Carmel, it's fascinating because it's just a tiny little guy, 2-way, thin, not even deep. It's shallow. If you're a speaker designer and you look at that thing, it's like the physics of that. I'm not, how much space is behind that, and then. And actually, if you're a YG fan, you might have been on our Facebook page not long ago and seen the crossovers inside.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see the crossover for that 2-way, you say to yourself, how is there any more space in that cabinet? It's this long, and it's 3 different parts. And I show it to people because it's for a two-way. And when you can start wrapping your mind around the lengths that we're going to get this phase behavior that we want, I mean that's why. And I love being a part of something that tries to hit an impossible target and does. You know, that why try if you don't think you can do it. And the development of Carmel 3 was exciting because we had a few objectives. You know, there's been I would say overall there's a different sort of sound character around the world that's appreciated, and we're super popular in the Asian hi-fi markets, and you know, there's not a lot of companies that really do a great job of straddling the American sound and the Asian sound of the kind of collective hi-fi world, and we really are trying our best. You know, the previous YG sound was so focused on precision, and it's almost like scalpel sharpness of images and stuff. And Americans want bass. What is that? I want to say my boss and colleague Steve. He says half the world's looking for religion, trying to find religion, and the rest are just want more bass. I don't know. It's kind of this thing that shows how ubiquitous a love of fulsome sound is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so knowing that, we went into this with particular design objectives. Now, when you're looking at a two-way in a shallow cabinet and 7-inch driver for the mid-range of bass, basically to do everything, you're thinking about how do I get this cabinet volume to act as a protection spring to make sure that this woofer is controlled without giving up the bass response that I'm really aiming for. And the answer is it's like I would say a razor's edge, and you really do have to pick a side. You really can't be on the top. You have to kind of either lean toward one direction or the other. And so what we did was just ever so slightly lean toward the I want more bass side. And so together with all of our innovations, which for this speaker we've got a new tweeter, a new waveguide and baffle, and then the crossover is completely different, including all of our new components and that kind of thing. But when you're making a speaker that that has the sound character you want and the effortlessness that you want, what we found is that some people are really forgetting it's a two-way, forgetting it's a 7-inch and a small speaker, and just turning it up and up and up and up and up. And with this speaker, and you might have heard it, Jake, if you heard this at Capital Audio Fest. I don't remember if you actually came to the room. You weren't there.
I wasn't in Capital
Now,
Munich.
now I'm remembering you weren't there. But the thing about the Carmel 3 is that it sounds like there's never going to be a ceiling as you keep going up. It's so open and effortless, and it's got this bass. You're just like, I can't believe my ears. Yeah, and the bass heads among us, you know, could induce some damage. But honestly, we when I mentioned the razor's edge, there's a lot of care taken to match everything so that we get the most safety as possible. But just to give you a little window into what it means to be a speaker designer trying to make a product like this as a reference speaker, and you know, you have to think about things from a bunch of different sides, but the R word, that reference, still remains your guiding focus. And so, you know, paired together with your gear, that room's going to be incredible. I cannot wait. That's
Yeah.
room 402 on the 4th floor. It's right in the corner. You're going to come down this hallway and see a big banner, because we actually have a little space in this corner to kind of chat and stuff. So you see the banner. Don't skip on that room. That's going to be a good one. You got to come see us.
Oh man. I mean, yeah, we've got Well, like yeah, we'll get to the cables in a second, I guess. But I'm just yeah, the fact that it's a two-way and it gets down to 32 hertz, is it? I think on the Carmels, that's insane. A two-way
All
that
of it.
gets down
It gets
that
all
low.
of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah. I mean,
That covers
it's
it for
amazing.
most genres of music, really. I mean, like the kind of that gut moving bass for your kick drum on a drum set is around 40. The attack is around 60, that chest kind of thumping attack. And
Yeah.
like a
Well,
bass guitar.
fundamental for a kick drum is 110. You're asking the mix engineer here, but 40 is actually there's 40 present in it, but actually modern like electronic drum triggers and sub kicks and all that kind of stuff. I sometimes I get mixes back from I'm a mastering engineer too. Sometimes I get mixes from my guy with this electronic trigger showing 5 hertz like at amplitude, like it's and I always have to shelve this stuff down, but it's like it's amazing what modern digital audio workstations can handle, but also what modern instruments are doing and what modern recording techniques are allowing. And yeah, there's so much going on down there. You really want to
Yeah.
be right.
Yeah. So yeah, 32 hertz on a two-way, man. I mean, that'll cover most
Yeah,
genres of
yeah,
music alone. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, so the
Absolutely.
cables too, very special. I don't think a lot of our followers, both of our followers, probably in the States, maybe probably haven't heard of these guys before, but Argento cables from
Yep.
Denmark. So it
Yep.
looks like they're silver is their thing, silver conductors,
Yeah.
some of the highest grade stuff I've seen.
I'm a big silver guy. I mean, it's so expensive when you're making your own cables. Even if you have great design and great geometry, it's hard to bite the bullet when your cost of goods is approaching like $1,500 for a 24-inch pair of cables. And I'm speaking for myself as a DIYer.
Yeah.
But when you do bite that bullet and get the silver in a big solid gauge or and not skimp on it, wow, it's not every silver is different. The silvers I like are just for the DIYers out there. I love dual on silver. They have a few ribbons that are amazing of different thicknesses, but the 26 gauge and the cotton jacket's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, what else? VH Audio makes a silver wire that's one of the better I've heard. I've never heard these Argento cables before, but our guy Ricardo is super hot on them, and he's such great ears that I really can't wait. I'm very excited. Big silver guy. So
Yeah, well, I was starting to do a little more research, and it looks like they make the uh binding posts for the Tidal speakers.
oh, okay,
So they make some solid silver binding posts, like high grade OEM solutions for brands of
cool.
that caliber. They make cables for CH Precision. So it's all high grade stuff.
Yep.
Their XLR connectors use silver contact pins. I think the same grade of silver as the conductors, maybe. So it's
Yeah, great.
yeah, I think
Well,
silver, especially on the mono blocks, man. Silver for power, silver for digital for me is kind of a
yeah,
no-brainer. But
yeah. I'm not a silver plated copper guy. I've never found anything that silver plated copper that I like. Not conductors, not wiring, not just a thing, just a notice thing I've noticed. Fiddling around with all this stuff. I've been. By the way, I got into audio when I was a kid. My grandfather got me into it. I think built my first speakers when I was 14, maybe earlier actually. So I'm a tweaker. I'm a DIYer. I'm a recording engineer. I try to get into all of it. So it's
yeah,
all good fun.
all those experiences matter. Like the more audio experience you can accumulate, the more relevant it's going to be to the new stuff you guys are working on too. With the Carmels, they're now the Carmel threes, right? So you
Yes.
guys, kind of similar to us, believe in upgrade paths, which I think is really cool. Not as many companies do this, but would you be able to kind of explain to our listeners what if somebody has a Carmel 2, what the upgrade process is like and how that works
That's
at
a
all?
great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, that's something we're working through right now because there's so many version 2s out there in the world. And I've told a bit of this story of our brand, resurgence and all this kind of stuff. And once you understand the story, you understand, and and really, if you start checking out some of our new tech, you understand how different it is from the previous. And if you're concerned at all about whether or not we are letting go of any good parts of what was there before, just read some of these great reviews. I think I have 6 reviews out last year, and I've got like 6 in progress right now. It's just constant kind of, you got to get this word out. You got to get people's ears on them. So we're just based on all the feedback we've gotten, and it mirrors what we believe that we're taking all of these designs forward. But we've gotten a lot of great feedback to that result. But so the upgrade process depends on the speaker. For Carmel, what you're doing is actually replacing a lot more of it than the other speakers. I'll give you an example why. If you can see the speakers behind me, there's a bottom and a top, and there's a little bit of a line right there. These ones are small. These are the Vantage, and they come together as one, but there's 2 cavities are separate, and so the mid bass has its own cavity, and etc. And so for a lot of these, we can actually just take the top faceplate off and replace that, because one of our new innovations is extensive reworking of all the waveguides throughout reference series. The Peaks waveguide is a completely different kind of waveguide than this one. It's a little more of a horn loading than primarily a waveguide. But we totally redesigned all the curves of the waveguides. So waveguides got to change. Then we redesigned the tweeter. The Carmel 1 and the Carmel 2 never had the top of the line tweeter from YG. As the entry level of the reference, it just had the silk dome that's used in the Peak series. Now it does. So you need a new tweeter. That's item number 2. So it's 3 phases of this upgrade, and we're using Carmel as an example. But there's baffle, there's tweeter, and then there's crossover. And the crossover update is really the one, and you can get 1, you can get 2, you can get all 3 if you want. But the crossover update's the most important. And so that's generally the one we encourage folks to go through first. If you've ever been a part of a major upgrade where you're replacing boards, you're replacing parts, at the end of the effort, you're looking at your old parts and you're thinking about all the beautiful music you played through them, and you're thinking, I can't just get rid of this. What am I going to do?
Still good.
I can't chuck this in the trash. Maybe I should make a speed. Maybe I'll get into DIY. And all these thoughts go through your head because what you're looking at is a lot of value and a lot of money that went into that. But that's progress. That's how progress is made. We got to start new with the new thing, because the new thing was us starting from the ground up and building our own components. We make our own inductors. We used to make the very fine tweeter inductors that would be accurate within 1,000th of a millihenry. Now we make our big inductors too. We've got 2 inductor machines going at all times. And so, the more you learn about our philosophy and what we've been able to accomplish, the more you understand. You really got to get the new guts in and the old guts out, and park them on your mantle if you want, but sadly, that's the way it goes. And the old circuit is the old circuit, and the new circuit is so much better. So, you could do it in 3 phases, and just one of them if you want, or one at a time if you want. But
that's really cool.
That's the process. Yep.
That's neat. I love it. Well, yeah, I know that the combination of this system, this room, it's going to be out of this world. I've been just itching to hear the Carmels with our stuff. Our guy Gary Mulder, who used to work for us, has Carmels, and I know he swears by them. He loves his Carmels.
He does. It's his favorite speaker. Yeah, and mine too. Although he's terribly partial to the Talus, which is the 2-way in the Peak series too. He and I are right on the same page, where we both love the coherence of the 2-way and the science of trying to get the most out of a 2-way with a bigger cabinet. But yeah, buddy, just you wait. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good. So yeah, I would have brought a pair over, by the way, by now. But every reviewer wants to review those. I've got a line about 6 long right now, and I gotta get myself another demo pair because I got mouths to feed, man. They're all
Right.
chirping. But the Carmels right now that we're gonna use in this room, they're with the Indulger.com staff right now.
Ah,
Yeah. Well, I like their moody, image-rich approach, right? It's
sure.
very lifestyle, very. Actually, when you get into it, you understand what they're doing. They're trying to align a bunch of different luxury verticals. They've got a watch section, they got a travel section, they got a gun, like a bespoke gun section, you know, that stuff. And then they got an audio section, and they really mostly focus on audio, but they bring in a lot of eyeballs from those other sections. So it's a little bit of this hi-fi evangelism. It's a little bit of a
High
outside the
performance
normal kind
lifestyle
of
kind
thing.
of.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted the first review of Carmel to be from those guys. So that's
Oh,
what's happening right
nice.
now.
That's cool. I've actually been talking with them the last couple of days too. So
Oh,
might get some air stuff going their way.
they're a hoot too. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That crew is a bunch of good people. So yeah.
Well, so are you guys. I can't wait to hang out with you guys in Southwest Audio Fest in Dallas, Texas, and Chicago, Schaumburg, Illinois.
Yeah, good old Schaumburg. I remember in Schaumburg, I was like, what's a Schaumburg? You know, and you're going around, and there's the hotel, and then across the street there's a 7-Eleven. And one morning I needed to go into the 7-Eleven. I can't remember why. I'm parking what is it? It was like a cargo van that we were driving around. I'm parking up, and up parks this Ferrari to the 7-Eleven, and this young guy pops out. He's it's like 28 or 30, 32 or something. He pops out and he goes in the 7-Eleven for his energy drink, pops back in, and you're just like, oh, that's Schaumburg. Yeah, okay, so there's some money here, and but it's not your average. Like, I wasn't guessing that because the whole area, I don't know, it's an interesting
It is.
section. I like the hotel. I'm a little sad that they're max capacity and that there's absolutely no way anybody can get into a big room there. You know, that's the downside of AXPONA. But
that's what new
you gotta
shows
go.
are good for, right?
That's why we're going to Southwest. We're gonna give that a shot and see how it goes.
Yeah. Support those guys. That's great.
Yep.
Well, I am sad Brian didn't make it on with us today, but it just gives us a good excuse to have an awesome guest next week. So we'll get Brian
We'll
back.
get him next time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for hanging out with us, Duncan. I know we're still probably got a night of work ahead of us even after the video here, so we're gonna get some more stuff done. But I'm counting the days down. 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive out on Monday, the 9th or something like that. 11th,
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
even less for you.
here we go.
Yeah, it's almost a week away.
Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna be good. It's all come together. So, well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I'll have to do this again. This is great. I'll just invite myself over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Get drag Steve on next time, and then we'll get you with
Yeah.
Darren on another one.
Yeah, and for any listeners, that's Darren Darren and I host a podcast called the Hi-Fi Podcast with Darren and Duncan. It's audio only, so it's not this fancy video stuff, but we got some good stuff in there.
Nice. Yeah, we're right.
Oh, and he is the VP of R&D at Parasound, so he's Chief of Engineering at Parasound.
Yeah.
For those who aren't aware.
Ariel's friend, John Curl.
Yeah, and John, you're right.
John
contracts and does a ton of stuff with them. And then of course, Jake, you used to work with Darren. I used to work with Darren too. So yeah, we all go way back. But
PS Audio OGs.
That's it.
We'll leave it at
All right,
that.
you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
having
night.
me. You
Cheers.
have a great night too. Cheers. Prost. See ya.
Yeah. Prost. Thanks, buddy.